Yeah, I think we settled on 4. If we've got
Yep,
4 of us, we're good to
four
go.
is a quorum.
Okay.
All right, well, why don't we start right off with Lake Surprise? We have the applicant or a representative.
Yeah, I'm just moving Cheryl over.
Right, well, why don't we start right off with Lake Surprise? It's funny, I'm hearing a pretty wicked echo of my own voice. I just heard what I said 30 seconds ago.
I'm here.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak to you again. Max was real helpful. I spoke to him. I went through all of Bradley's old notes, and I want to tell you, I'm going to request that we could please keep the 2 issues separate with the work we need to do down by that culvert where we've done everything you've asked to what we need to do up in that area. Nothing was done, and I want to be honest about it. And it's embarrassing because we got the letter from you guys in 2019. Granted, it was right before COVID. He may or may not have been focused on other things. I don't know what to say. I'm embarrassed. Gene, who is our caretaker, has spoken to Nicholas Scottos, who said that he would come in and help us do whatever needed to be done up there. Max said after I spoke to you guys tonight that he would come and look at the site. And I'm asking you to please help me separate the issues because there's things I need to do to get the camp ready for the kids. And he's not here anymore. And there's a reason he's not here anymore. And I'm embarrassed. We had a board meeting tonight where we said we realized we're going to have to be putting in trees or whatever you want us to do. And we will comply. You have no reason to believe me because I'm sure he said that to you in June. But I need your help with this. And I'm going to ask you just to consider it. And I know it's a long shot, but it doesn't hurt to ask, but minimally come out and see what has to get done so I can present it to my board because I believe replanting trees is going to cost some money, and whatever it is we have to do, we are happy to do. And I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say on behalf of the camp.
Thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate the sentiment. I mean, I don't know how the rest of you guys feel, but it feels to me like if we can have some sort of guarantee in any way, shape, or form that that work is going to be, there's something that can be held back at the end, or there's something. I mean, I say let's separate the 2 issues, but you know, with an eye toward making sure that something happens. What do you think, MJ? Future chair.
I'm not going to answer you if you say that.
Sorry.
I'm wondering if maybe this isn't, if a escrow wouldn't be a good way to kind of ensure that that our expectations are met this time around.
Listen, I am fine to bring back to my board. I can actually email my board president right after this. If someone can tell me what exactly that entails, because I'm a camp director and not an attorney, and exactly what type of escrow you're looking for, I can tell you that we're embarrassed and we want to do the right thing. And if it requires holding money in escrow that we're going to get back because we're going to do the right thing, well, then I don't see why they would be opposed to it. I really don't. But again, I would have to go back because that's above my interim pay grade.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Max, do you want to weigh in? Because you and I walked the property. I mean, what was it, 2 years ago now, after a logger had brought in a bunch of feller, and the damage was very significant. I'm not against separating the 2, but in terms of, I don't even know how you go about reforestation. It would be more of keeping out deer, but there needs to be some repair of the wetland where the road went through. I don't think it's so much planting trees. Max, you've been up there more recently than I have, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't, we didn't do a site visit yet, but you know, I re-forwarded, I don't know if the board recalls, but when this all first came to fruition, we put together a memo stating what we felt were the proper items to rectify the situation. I forwarded that letter and a letter that Parks had wrote to the camp as well, to Bradley, regarding easement violations pertaining to that work. So what Cheryl's referencing in terms of work being done to rectify the situation, I believe, is in reference to those letters.
Right.
From what I recall, and Cheryl can forward those to the board, or I can, but it was to essentially replace the trees that were removed threefold with at least a minimum of a 3-inch diameter sapling, protect those with deer fence, and then come up with a restoration plan for the logging road that was developed on the parcel. So, and come, essentially restore any sort of areas that were eroded or rutted from the skidder that was brought in to pull the timber out. That's kind of where it was left off. And then the only other stipulation was to satisfy any conditions that the state had, put forth to the camp. So essentially I wanted the board to weigh in and see if they still felt like, they wanted, for the camp to pursue that direction in terms of restoring the area, and then also to separate the projects apart and see if we could permit the bridge work for camp operations to continue in the future.
Are you guys seeing the in the comment in the chat section from Cheryl? Cheryl, you just posted something to us?
Yes, I did. Matt Grosshandler, who's on my board and is in construction, is somewhere in one of your waiting rooms, and he chatted that to me and asked me to put it in.
Are you guys reading that? The idea of transplanting existing trees. My own experience with that is, something of a 3-inch caliper tree, transplanting that from native rocky soil is going to be tough at best. But what do you guys think?
I'm sorry. I made that comment before I heard the comment about the 3 inches. 3 inches won't transfer very well. Typically, when we do this, and it's normally in reforestation, when we're doing, wetland reclamation or, new entrances into subdivision type projects, often in an effort to preserve the natural vegetation, will often transplant, but it's typically at a much smaller diameter, much smaller caliper.
I mean, my own opinion.
I think
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
please.
Mark.
Sorry, Max.
Oh, no. My only comment to that would be is if we did go with a smaller diameter, that we would need to have assurances regarding survivability of the plants and potentially increased quantity. I mean, I think that letter was laid out basic guidelines, but I don't know if the board would be in favor of this, but actually coming up with a plan, like a restoration plan, instead of just kind of like an enforcement letter. I think that would be more valuable. And maybe if we associate some sort of bonding with that plan, that would be a good way to move things forward.
Yes.
Where did the 3-inch diameter come from?
I believe that was just a metric that the board threw out in regard, I think we wanted assurances that these, since a mature, healthy trees were removed, that we were going to be essentially, reforesting with some sort of increased vigor. I don't know if that came,
I mean, would I be more comfortable? I'm not sure, those trees might survive, they might not survive. I mean, essentially, it's a relatively healthy forest. We're at a point that we had a mast crop this year, and we'll probably have another one in the next year or two. I think a forester needs to be employed by the camp, figure out how to do this, how to fence it. And Max, I don't know if the town allows it, but I think you brought up what makes a lot of sense is really a bonding rather than an escrow, because I don't think we could ever ask for enough of an escrow. And I'm sure the camp would not really be comfortable, if we said we wanted a $50,000 or $100,000 escrow, that's a lot of money to put up. But if you had to put that up as a bond, that becomes a lot easier to do.
If it pleases the board, I would have recommended a bond in response to the escrow anyway. That is the appropriate way to do that.
Well, guys,
I'm fine with that. I just wanted something that would ensure that you stayed focused on this as a project going forward until the trees met, met the expectations and the plan.
Can
can I
someone
throw-
tell me exactly what we need so I can get it?
Let me throw something out here. I think there's kind of two issues. There's the removal of the trees, which obviously you're never going to replace 24-inch diameter trees. It's going to take 100 years. So focusing just on the trees is great. We should get some trees back in there. And I think especially on that area on the road itself, so you stabilize that. But maybe a massive effort to improve the wetland itself. Maybe money is better spent there. Maybe we can make a really good wetland out of something that maybe was not so good before. I really don't know what the condition of the wetland could be, but I'm just throwing it out there as a thought that the money could be better spent to improve the environment.
Mark, my memory is not perfect, but being out there, it's not a large wetland. It appeared, and Max, please weigh in, it appeared to be wealthy and relatively undisturbed other than the road going through it. In my mind, I think you need to consult with somebody that's familiar with restoring wetlands, but I don't think it's a huge amount of planting plan. It's more of, okay, a road went through it. How do we get material out? How do we try to get it back to what it was? And I do think there's probably enough existing flora there that it'll come back. And then working with a decent forester to allow the areas that have been cut to come back. I don't
Right.
think you necessarily need to plant trees. It's possible if after a couple of years we're not seeing regeneration, you would do that. But I think it's more fencing and making sure there's not unnecessary disruption or compaction of the soil that's taken place. And I myself don't have a problem breaking the two things apart as long as there's a bonding mechanism to make sure this gets done.
All right, and then the stipulations for what would cause the bond to be forfeited. I mean, that's what the stick is. So we have to talk about what that would be, and then let's move on. Right?
Well, failure to maintain the trees that, they planted so that they can continue to grow. I mean, I think this has got to be a multi-year, endeavor here that shows that basically this kind of damage is going to be monitored for years. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that it happened, but
Agreed.
this is the kind of thing that we really need to let the applicants know that we take it seriously. I mean, this has been an ongoing thing for quite some time, and you guys disappeared for a while, so.
Let's be clear, we guys didn't disappear. Bradley disappeared. And he represented the agency, and I
Well,
understand that.
Lake
We wanted
Surprise,
everything.
Lake Surprise disappeared, so.
Correct.
So let's do this. Let's ask the question. What you're asking us to give you a permit to, or we'll lift the stop work order so you can keep going with the other part of the project. Does
That is
anybody have
correct.
an objection to that?
No.
So we're going to separate the two things. Can I have a motion to lift the stop work order under Max's supervision? And can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we've all voted right. So there your stop order, Max will take care of that.
Thank you.
And then Max, can
Thank
you sort of spearhead the bond and something, what do we have to
Yeah.
write an official document up, I assume?
Yeah, so
Well,
if I,
I think if the board would be, take this into consideration. If the camp can come up with a restoration plan that focuses on a silvicultural approach and also a wetlands restoration approach, then I think that document is something that we can hold in our hands, that's backed by professionals that we can use and bond, and it should have a timeline and sequence of events, for them, to achieve certain metrics in that the board's comfortable with.
So
I
Cheryl,
think if we can get
sorry,
the
Max,
ball
go ahead.
rolling. No, I was saying if they can get the ball rolling and present that to us, I think that's a little bit less ambiguous than the letter stating, just, replace in kind 3 times at X rate, at X size. I think one of the big things, if I'm recalling correctly, was that we didn't have a full understanding of how many trees were removed. So if we can at least include that and try to quantify it in some way, so you're not going above and beyond, what was done, that would be extremely helpful, I think, for both parties. And then we can go from there. We can actually see something and we can critique something in hand.
So Cheryl, do you think that you can come into next month's meeting prepared to present that?
As long as it's not the first week in January, yes, I definitely can do that. I have a question.
Absolutely. If I could just chime in on that, and I apologize to interrupt you, Cheryl. I just want to make sure we're sensitive to the fact that we do want to make sure we're engaging either, the proper foresting or agent or an arborist or somebody that can come in and guide us properly. And I just want to make sure that we will endeavor to have that for next month. But in the event that we haven't found a consultant or the consultant's been engaged but hasn't had time to prepare a plan, I just don't want to come to you and have failed on our first step here. So if it's possible, I'd say if you could give us 60 days, I'll try for the following meeting. You tell us when the next meeting is, but if you can give us 60 days, I think we'll have a greater likelihood of success.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
From the forestry standpoint, what you need to do is find a New York State accredited consulting forester.
Yep.
And I
Not the one that
believe,
took out the trees.
right, no, you want somebody that's a consulting forester. They work with landowners on forest management. And if somebody were to do a timber harvest, they're the ones that are working, not for the timber companies or the buyers.
Right,
There's
they're
a
certified by New
certification.
York State.
Right. There's a certification process. I believe on the DEC website, there is a directory where you can find them. Where you're going to have trouble, because I'm looking for a new forester myself. I'm not happy with the one I'm using. There's not a lot of people that work down here. So it's going to take you a little bit of doing. I'll be curious who you find, because I might want to talk to them.
We'll be happy to share that. And with regard, I think, Max, this was your point earlier, with regard to the bond itself, generally speaking, and I pull a bunch of these in my line of business, there's usually a terms or set of terms or conditions that would satisfy the bond. It's not so much a series of things that would cause a default, but rather the bond will stay in place until the following items have been satisfied. A replanting plan, a wetland regeneration plan, whatever those happen to be. So what we can do is we engage the New York State accredited forester. We'll make sure that we work with them on making some recommendations on what that plan might look like, and then we can submit it to you guys for approval and comment.
Does that
So-
make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, MJ, please.
I was just going to suggest that we and I'm specifically speaking to you, Max, are there metrics, goals that we want achieved through these plans that we can give them as guidelines? Because I would hate for Matt and Cheryl to, find somebody and have them create a plan and then have us say, well, that's not exactly what we wanted. Or can we give them some sense of what good looks like?
I mean, yeah, from my perspective, I think the wetland restoration, the restoration of the woods roads is really important. Ensuring that there are no invasive species that have been introduced, or you have some sort of plan in place that is going to address any introductions that were caused through disturbance from the work. And then really, I think where the other metric that they can really rely on is getting a survey and an understanding of how many trees were removed, and then take a look and at quantities for restoration purposes based on that, and then I would start from there. So get a sense of how many trees were felled, and we can come up with a number for replacement, and in regards to survivability. From deer browse, or just if they succumb to natural conditions or survive. I think that's the most pragmatic way to go at it. Or you can do it more holistically, and then from a forest restoration standpoint, have a forester come in and say, hey, look, this is what was done. This was a violation. what would you propose to make this right and improve this, area of forest that was harvested or selectively harvested? And then I would say coming back to us with that plan as well, we could evaluate. So I think there's a couple of different approaches. I would rely on whoever they retain to provide something back to us.
I just want to make sure that it hits all the high notes for us, that, in
Yeah.
terms of what we think success looks like.
Andy,
Yeah, I think from that. Oh, sorry, Jen.
I was just going to say, Andy, you said something about you are more interested in fencing and wetlands than replanting.
Yeah, I mean, the area they went through the wetland aside, the rest of it, planting trees in the mesic type of forest we have usually really doesn't work unless there was a clear cut. And even then, it's not, considered the best practice. The best practice is the forest will regenerate if, it's three major things. Basically, you're dealing with competition being from usually invasive species or unwanted species like beech trees. The second is deer. So I'm going to guess a forester is probably going to come up with a plan of fencing that will need to stay up for 7 to 10 years. And I have a feeling the forest will regenerate itself. Is it going to be big trees? Absolutely not. It's going to be small trees, but at a certain point within his management or her management plan, they're going to talk about culling, 2/3 of the saplings, and it will fill in. It will be a forest again, and it'll be healthy. I don't think you can go in and make a forest. I think you need here to let the forest make itself.
I got to tell you, I'm not a forester, but that makes a lot of sense to me. I've seen people spend a ton of money trying to plant saplings in large quantities, and a lot of the times it really doesn't work very well. And if the forester says he thinks it can regenerate itself if it's properly fenced, supervised, and maintained, and then, as you say, culled, that really strikes me as maybe just let the forest heal itself and get a time commitment with a long tail to be sure that it's given adequate time to regenerate.
Yep, that all makes sense. All right, so Max, I guess that's in your ballpark. Are we good, everyone?
Well, before we go, I got one thing. Sorry,
Yes, sir.
I didn't have my thing down. Yeah, again, one of our kind of guiding principles here has been, kind of better than it was. So like here, we talked about repairing damage that's going to take, years for repair. But again, I don't know the property well enough, but I think we've got enough activity going on there that there's got to be some place there that when you bring in this forester, that you could propose kind of a remediation area that, could help to make it a little bit better than it was, especially since this is the kind of place that it's a learning activity that, the people that come to the camp as clients can learn from and can understand what a remediation activity is. And I know Eric was always big at, kind of these remediation activities as a learning activity. So I think that would be a really good thing to do.
That's great. I like that thought a lot.
And if I could say one more thing to Cheryl. Cheryl, this is not in the least punitive. Camp Surprise has been a long time important nonprofit here in Putnam County. Even the best of good citizens can make mistakes. I think that's what happened here. We want to work constructively, I think, with Camp Surprise to fix the damage because of the responsibilities the board has. We can't just say, well, gee, mistakes happen. But I think if the camp is willing to work constructively and in good faith with the town and the board will certainly do the same, I'm sure, with the camp.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, that's why I proposed the kind of the remediation as a learning activity. I think that, that kind of fits with their charter,
We have a Teva Nature Learning Center and we have a farmer at camp. And, we incorporate environmental stuff because we do overnights and hikes and things about, along those lines. And we can put that in as a programmatic piece because we all need to be better stewards of the earth, as we've proven by what we did. So I'm very happy to incorporate that into what we're doing for this summer. And I really appreciate your time and your understanding. And thank you very much.
Cheryl, thank you. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Koos, Justin's Way.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, did we want to do, we're going to do Koos before the referral?
Yeah, Koos is gonna be
Okay.
quick, I think.
Okay. So, that's fine. So Koos, I did exactly, Jason Snyder from Beatty and Watson. I'm filling in for Steve Marino. He had a little conflict. So since I did all the work on this round, he called me up. So
Got it.
I'm filling in. So I did everything that you had asked with regard to rerouting the, you know what? Let me share my screen. Can I share, Cheryl?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. Sorry about that. Can everybody see the plan?
Yep.
Okay. So let me zoom in here a little bit. So we relocated the sewer line and tanks out of the 20% regulated slopes here. It's sort of a more circuitous route, but it gets the job done that you wanted. And we have a little area for maintenance here off this to the side of the driveway, so that'll aid in maintenance of the tanks and sewer system. And we also scooched the house off of the slopes in the back.
Good. Sounds good.
So I think that does. Now we got to get this. We got to get this plan. I mean, I wasn't going to go back and forth with the health department, but I will. I'll send this to the health department and get it revised if this is what you were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I think that satisfies what we asked for.
I agree. I have one question, Jason.
Sure.
Right now, the sewer line goes between the existing field and what would be the expansion field. True? Right?
Well,
Where your pointer is.
those are the distribution laterals from the distribution box. So that's the feeder lateral the feeder laterals that feed all the absorption trenches. Correct.
All right. So my only question is, I'm assuming it was done there versus on would be the right side, so that it would be near the expansion area if it ever needed to be used.
Yeah, usually we set up the distribution box so that it can also feed the
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to know.
So there's less work if you did have to use that reserve area. You wouldn't have to relocate the sewer and we can use the same box and all that stuff.
Right. That's why. I mean, I'd prefer it to have been on the other side, but I'm assuming that's why you put it there. So that's a reason. I'm fine.
Correct. Okay.
All right, so if there are any other questions, if there aren't any other questions, I guess, are we giving a permit for this? We're just giving our approval, our thumbs up. Jason is
Hey,
going to the health
Jason?
department. That's it.
Oh, before we switch over, so wasn't there one little section of the house that was still in the buffer, if I recall, or am I blurring
Yep.
this with?
Correct.
That you rotated it to take it out, right? You said?
Yeah, we rotated and scooched it up a little bit. So now we're in between this. Now we're in between the 20% in the front and the back.
Got it, Bob?
Okay, so it's out. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Out of
Yeah.
buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You make a good point. That was the other thing. We didn't make that clear just now, that the house was sticking into the steep on the uphill side on the back of that, on the back of the hilltop. So they moved it out. Seems like it's good now.
Yeah, engineering
other-
term scooched.
Scooch, yeah. Little scoochy scooch. Tappy tap.
The only other item was there was an entire mitigation plan that was associated with running the driveway through the regulated area on the top of the plan set there. So I don't know if there's any updates to that or where the board stands with what was proposed there. I don't know if Jason, you have any of that info, or if that's a Steve thing.
No, I mean I mean, I went over this briefly with Steve, and he seemed to think that we were all set with that, with the mitigation.
Okay.
And the disturbance.
Is that the board recalls? Do you remember? I don't know if everyone remembers that there was a planting plan and invasive species management plan that had been called out in some plan notes early on.
No, you're right, Max. You're correct. But right now, I don't think right now, since it has to go back to the Board of Health, we wouldn't be issuing a permit anyway, true?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is we're just telling Jason that we are good with the way he's done it in general terms, and then he'll go back to the health department, get their approval. And then if a client comes in and wants to build a house on this property, they're going to have to provide a full set of plans, because the drawing that's shown on this house for where this house is just a general idea of a footprint. As long as a new homeowner comes in there and puts a box on top of that hill, it doesn't go into the slopes, and they run the pipe where it's shown, approved by the health department, they're good. They don't have to build that shape house, that size house, nothing, but they'll have to provide a full set of plans. And at that time, will they have to come before us? Actually, they won't, because they won't be in the steep slopes. There are no,
It's the
of course they will. Of
the
course they will.
It's the driveway.
Driveway is
They'll
the
come back.
thing.
Of course.
Driveway through the wetlands.
So they'll be before the board again. And at that time, any of these, the mitigation plan will have to be provided.
Right.
Well, I mean, the current owner can build this driveway and septic system before somebody builds a house.
Well, to that extent, then maybe Max is absolutely right, that the mitigation plan, even if it's something that if it already existed, everybody seems to recall that there was a plan. Can you just add that back into these quickly? Is
I mean,
it something?
I don't think
it's
it was a
either.
plan. I think it was discussed that a plan needed to be put in place.
Yeah, I think there was a conversation, and Steve said there would be a mitigation plan. He'd have a proposal to go with, but I don't think that ever has been presented. And I think we'd need to see the proposal, and there'd need to be some way to be sure if, for example, he wanted to build the driveway now, in point of fact, the related work got done.
So, I mean, to me, if they can produce that and give it to Max, Max is really going to be the one who's going to look at that exact planting plan and decide if it's good enough. He can make that decision. As far as I'm concerned, what do you guys think? So if they add it now, get the planting plan from
Absolutely.
and get it to Max, and then we're out.
Well, we'll issue a permit contingent
Right.
on the planting plan.
But we're not actually issuing a permit now. We're just saying to Jason that he can, if he adds the planting plan
Ralph.
to this,
Yeah, the
shows
mitigation
Max.
plan is on the plan. I can't see the top of this one, but on the.
I got Ralph Koos on the phone.
I'm sorry.
Ralph, I'm in the meeting.
Yeah, but they have the plan. The mitigation plan has been presented.
He said you have the plan. He
Max,
says you have the mitigation plan
Since July.
since July. You don't have a plan?
There is a plan, I think, but it's a call out on a plan set. I just wanted to reiterate that is still
Okay.
in front of us.
Because
yeah,
I don't think anybody.
let's not go around in circles here. Jason, can you quickly just go to that plan page that everybody's talking about, so we can just take a quick look that it really exists on this plan set?
I don't have the planting plan. I just have the,
All right, well, then we're gonna take Mr. Koos' word for it that the planting plan exists. Show it to Max. If Max is okay with it, we're okay with it.
yeah, I mean, Steve Marino said it was done too, so.
Right, let's not quibble
Okay.
over.
Okay,
semantics. If it exists, it exists. Show it to Max, he'll accept it. We're
Okay.
moving on.
and then
All right.
and then Max can issue the permit.
Max, we're not issuing any permits yet. The permit for just build the driveway is what you're saying. Yes, yes.
Correct.
But then in that case, we need to vote now. We need to vote. we need
Yeah,
to
well,
motion.
that's what we want to get done, yeah.
How do you guys feel about
Is,
that?
well, I have a question before. Is the plan to just build a driveway and then wait for a buyer? Is that what it is? Or I mean,
I would think that he wants to build the driveway so that they can show a prospective buyer a house site. I mean, from my understanding is that they're building this, they want to build this driveway and septic system.
So you're applying for a permit for a driveway and the septic system, which has to go to the building department, and then the building department has to decline it and send it to the wetlands board. We have to vote on it, and then we will issue the permit, correct? Isn't that the proper sequence?
I mean, it just seems like it's a disturbance that is unnecessary until there's a house to be built. That's my opinion. And then, now all of a sudden it's grandfathered. Oh, now it's an existing septic system, like.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know it's a good question. We normally would build the septic system after the house, so it doesn't get disturbed. You'd build the house, do all the work, and put the septic system in at the end. So,
Right.
I don't know that we can.
We're creating a grandfathered situation, right, Mark? I mean, this is like, okay, now it's like the house burnt down, and now there's a septic system in the ground, so we have to build, but there's nothing there now. So and
Yeah.
again, by rights, there's no reason to put that in until there's a plan to build a house, in my opinion.
I mean, the question is it within the law that you can apply for a permit to put in a septic system and a driveway without building a house? If there's no law that says you can't do that, then they've got to file a building permit for the driveway and the septic. And then it's good for a year. They have to actually go ahead and build it. But before the building department can issue it, we have to issue a wetlands permit.
No, I think you're correct, Mark. I think whether we like it or not, I think that they do, as a landowner, have the right to prepare a site for building, including a septic. But what we can't do tonight is, I'm not comfortable myself voting on the mitigation for where the driveway goes through a wetland. That I think needs to be done, once we see the plans again and Max is comfortable with it. But I think.
And I think to bring
I'm sorry.
Just to bring the board back up to speed, I think initially Steve approached the conservation board with an application solely for the construction of a driveway. And then we took pause at that, and we allowed him to do some rough clearing to get a machine up onto the buildable area to do the test holes for the septic system. And so he could create this overall site plan to come back to us to give us more of an assurance in terms of, essentially, avoiding the situation that you're all concerned about. So yeah, I think the mitigation component is closely tied to having this project be a success. And I think that was one of the big things for us initially was if this is going to be sold, who essentially is going to be responsible, 5 years from now to ensure that the mitigation plan is successful. So I think that was a big part of the whole application and our initial concern as well. So,
Well, let me ask this question as a builder. I mean, if you want to sell that property, you've got to get a client up to the top so they can see what the view is. They can see what the driveway is going to be like. Can we give a permit with the planting plan to put in a rough driveway? That's it. No septic, nothing. Just to allow them to get item 4 or whatever they're going to use so that you can drive up there and show clients.
Based on the current plan that Jason just showed us, the only thing they need a permit for is the driveway. They don't
Right.
need a permit from us for any of the other elements. Am I clear on that? That's right, right?
Well, the only thing they needed from us for the septic was they had to change the way the piping went. We wanted it by the
Right.
road and we wanted it out of the steep,
But they've
other than
changed that. They've
Right.
changed that. So now it's just the driveway. So, and as you said, Mark, if you're the landowner, you're allowed to prep a site for sale, right?
Right.
As a buildable lot.
I
and
would
put in
think so.
Certain improvements. So I think this plan has to come back from the county, right? And we have to see the mitigation plan. Then we just vote on on whether we think that that suffices as
Mhm.
mitigation for, you know,
Right.
for the disturbance.
I think many years ago, there were a few iterations of the driveway layout itself. I mean, I looked back at our building files, and
There
I
were.
think the layout was determined to be in this scheme. But I think that maybe the board needs a refresher and needs to understand why this is the best possible layout for that portion of the driveway and why a mitigation plan is necessary. Maybe that's part of that discussion to help the board vote and make an appropriate decision.
Yeah, I'm feeling like we're a little stuck here.
I think Jason should be happy and his client that essentially we're happy with the potential home site where the septic system is going. That's all, they've done whatever we've asked. So right now, it's really only a part of the driveway, which we don't have a full plan, which is not Jason's forte. It would be a wetland scientist for the mitigation. Am I correct, Max? And that I think should be brought to the next meeting and we'll vote on it.
Yeah, and I believe that that's there. I just think it needs to be discussed. I think we had provided to us months ago, like they stated. I just don't think Steve ever got into the details of that plan, and the board never hashed out the requirements, because I think the main talking point was, okay, well, why would we provide a permit solely for access to the property? I think we wanted to see some sort of holistic approach to the property to move forward with permitting.
Yeah, I mean, this is a strange one because the client is not coming in for a permit from us to build the house. And it's not, like Max said, a holistic, it's not the whole project. I mean, I'm just finishing a house right now where the client bought a piece of property that had a driveway and a septic. So said the realtors, but the health department had no record of it whatsoever. Nobody. We wound up doing a bunch of test holes and we found the septic was actually there. So, it happens. It happens. Things can be done this way. The question is,
Well, no, they can't be done that way. You just said it, right? I mean, it's a disaster when the records aren't kept properly, right? So, I mean,
It shouldn't be done that way.
No, right, it shouldn't be done.
Yeah,
So we shouldn't
right.
perpetuate it,
Right.
again, it's a turnkey package, like basically, Jason did his job, and that part of it's done and it's ready to go. And,
Right.
quite frankly, there's ways to get into the property without putting down gravel as a road when maybe it's going to be 10 years before somebody builds into
Right.
it,
Yeah, I agree
So,
there.
and again, the sites that we've got in this town are getting so few and far between that, that this is the kind of thing we got to think about pushing back on. I believe it's my
Yeah, and
personal
I think
opinion,
you're right,
but,
Bob. I mean, the truth is, once you cut a road up through there, if you don't finish it, you don't put in the proper drainage and so on, it's going to become a muddy, silty erosion mess.
Right.
So you got to
I've
finish.
seen that. Honestly, there's been properties near me that I've seen that have been cut and like that for years and years and years, and you think they're unbuildable, then suddenly somebody puts up a house, and
Right.
eventually it happens, but it's been years, so.
So if we were to give a permit at some point for this road to be built, it's not just a flattened spot that you can drive a Jeep up. It's whatever this plan shows as the finished road. That's what's got to be built before you would get. It would be a finalized. You obviously don't get a CO for a road, but until we could approve that yes, it was done according to the plan, that road has to be finished. Is that what Mr. Koos is thinking of doing?
So,
If you're just trying to cross the wetlands and that's the only thing you're getting permission from us for.
because it was my understanding that it was my understanding the house construction wasn't part of the wetland permit. Because
Right,
we don't need a house, we don't need a wetland permit to build the house.
correct. And now that you've.
So I think that's just an administrative difference, I guess.
Absolutely right. Since you move the house out of the steep slope, it's out of our purview. But the only thing that is in our purview is that wetland. And you're asking us to give you a permit on the crossing of the wetland, and you haven't given us any of the mitigation, which is the only thing that we're interested in.
But, well, that is unfortunate. I mean, I mean, it was my understanding that the last pieces of this puzzle were the sewer and the tanks and the house
Right.
in the steep slopes. And then once we did that, we could get a permit and go and he could sell it with a permit. The owner could sell it with a wetland permit. I mean, the owner, I mean, we don't want to sell this property and permits still needing to be issued other than a building permit. We can't, I mean, nobody wants to tell a prospective buyer, well, we got this wetland permit to build the driveway, but then you're going to have to go back later so that you could continue to drive through. I mean, I guess what you're saying is they're going to need a permit after a road or a driveway is built because they're going to be driving through it, and there could be some dust and some
No,
No, no, no, no, Jason, that's not it. That's not it.
I think.
Okay.
It sounds like, am I confused? It sounds like there was a mitigation plan given to the conservation board. We just don't have it in front of us to look at.
I'm looking
Right.
through all my files on this and I don't see it.
It's
So
the plan itself is a small call out on a survey sheet. It's not a long multi-page document. It's just essentially said, this is from memory here, but it's essentially just a polygon with planting notes in it, and like a one, whatever our code requires. I think it's a 1 to 1.5 replanting ratio based on the amount of fill that they're putting in the buffer and the wetland that Steve put together. But Jason makes a point about, if this property's sold and we issue a conditional permit that wetland mitigation portion of the project is required, and we cite his plan, this site plan that's put in front of us with that plan, and the owner, while a sale is pending, if we approve all of those documents and no construction happens until that sale occurs, and the owner keeps those documents current, I mean, those plans are cited as what we've approved. So if any sort of deviation is made from what was cited on the permit we issue, then it's null and void. It has to start over again. So I think making it, if we're all comfortable with that mitigation plan and the layout of the proposed building area and the layout of the septic system and looking at it from that perspective, I think if we have that discussion, I think you could vote on a permit, and when they come in for a building permit and they have that permit in hand, they keep it valid, and they renew it annually, and they don't deviate from what they've presented to this board. They can move forward. If it does deviate, we can, they'll come. So
Max,
I think that's an important.
I have to say, all of that said, I strongly feel like there are two different permits here. I mean, we're going to issue a permit to cross the wetland, and that's it. That's it. That's all we're giving them permission for. We don't have the right to give them permission to do anything else. We can put notes.
Well,
require that
we
notes.
do.
Go ahead. Sorry.
We're looking at it from in terms of from a perspective from seeker. We're looking at it more of in a whole project capacity. I mean, that's why that's important. That's why this is this.
I'm just suggesting that, Max, I'm sorry. I'm just suggesting that if we were to issue a permit now, I could see my way clear to issuing a permit to cross the wetland, and that's it. So the work around the wetland is done with the full mitigation. Anything else has nothing to do with us. So they can run the road up to the top. They can do whatever they want to get up there, but somehow it's got to be set in cement that what we've said we are okay with up on top, the house being out of the steep slope, the septic being set up exactly like it is there. anything is changed with those two aspects, which we have reviewed, it's null and void. It's out, they're done. So I don't see we can give I agree with you guys. I don't want to we shouldn't grandfather this site in, give a permit to go do work that they're not going to do what is on this plan. I guarantee they're not going to do what's there. An architect's going to go up on top and come up with some creative new design, and they're going to build whatever they want up there.
And then there'll be a hardship story, you know, we bought this property because of X, whatever, you know, and we've seen it before, you know.
Okay, but we can't speculate on what somebody's gonna, you know, like malfeasance that doesn't exist, right?
Exactly.
Well,
So
if I'm sorry, if they do the work and Max, if they do the work to cross the wetlands and Max signs off on it, and I mean, can we can then close out the permit. When somebody goes in for a building permit, Max is going to have another eye on it because Greg is going to refer it to the board again.
that's the point I wanted to make, Jason, is, I mean, if there's a way that we can create a jacket for this property, right? Like some sort of a, you know, you've got a pop-up window or something. We had talked about this back with Dave Klotzel, like creating something so that on these properties, when they, you know, when somebody, you know, tries to pull a building permit, and all of the information from this conversation and the permit as it was issued and the mitigation plan all come up. And if they're not meeting the criteria of that permit, then they get dinged. If it's not, you know, I mean, or, you know, the homeowner actually has, you know, access to this information, so they don't come up with the crazy plan, right? Like, you know, I was saying, like, they can't come up with the, you know, 5,000, you know, square foot footprint for the house because it won't fly.
Yep. And Cheryl just messaged that the mitigation plan does exist. It was on the May meeting, and I opened it up and I'm looking at it. It's on the town website right now. And it includes the maps, which you guys will recall, which had, you know, 3 or 4 different colors. There was proposed wetlands disturbance area, there was proposed wetland buffer encroachment, the wetland buffer restoration area, and so on. And it has as Max said, a big rectangle, which includes invasive species monitoring control program. It lists all the invasive species, and then it lists plant species choices for wetland buffer enhancement restoration. It shows the quantity, the type. It doesn't show any locations. I mean, is that, do we need to go, do we need more detail than this?
Yes, yeah, I mean,
Can
come
you
on.
share
I mean,
your screen, Mark?
this is a new
Honestly-
plan. We need all the information in front of us. So come back with a plan, a mitigation plan that's proper, and give it to us contemporary when we're going to have the discussion, not 5 months ago or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Bob.
I agree, Rob. I agree. Matt, I'm emailing it to you right now. Trying. I don't know if I know how to screen sit. My last meeting, I've never done that.
It's on the bottom. There's a button on the bottom.
You have to stay then.
Sure to share mine if you want.
Let's see, where is it? And does that mean I have to get all my personal?
Cheryl, if you can share it, that would be
Yeah, I'll
great.
do it, Mark. Let's
Yeah,
see.
I know myself, even if there's a plan, I'm not ready to, at this point, vote on it because I'd need to stare at it.
Yep.
But it doesn't sound like there's a plan. There's not a mapped plan. There's an
There's this.
inventory of.
Yeah, okay, now I remember, yep, deja vu. Yep,
Yeah,
yeah, it's not complete.
okay. This was kind of the beginnings of a
Right.
discussion, yeah.
So, all right. I mean, I think everybody seems to be in agreement. Jason, I'm sorry, it's not the outcome you were hoping for tonight.
I feel like it's my fault, but Steve's going to be sore at me, but it is what it is.
So Steve,
all right,
it's his
so
fault.
Steve needs to prepare a detailed planting plan. And I need to get the health department permit approved. I mean, it should.
Yep.
So
But the really good news, Jason, is that we're really happy with the way that the house is being cited and the septic is being cited. I mean, I think that's
Yeah, and
really positive.
All right.
I think if there could be discussion about why the road was cited into the area is going to be helpful, because I've reviewed the building file and there were many iterations that we have plan sets for that never came to fruition from years ago, showing that road, the center line for that road going into different areas of the property to gain access to the buildable locations. So
Well, just what I could, Max, just what I could see from this, what we have on the septic plan, it looks like they're going through the narrowest little section of there's like a little arm of the wetlands. Maybe that's like a seep or something. I don't know, but they're going through. We're going through the narrowest part of the wetlands, and we're also squeezing that in between this this area of steep slope. So
Exactly right. That's exactly what Steve was trying to do. That's what he's explained to us. But I think, the rest of the road was never really discussed. It's just kind of like Max is saying. So
okay,
still something to be talked about. All right, can we move on to the next one? Are we good? Arnaud, Juniper Hill Road. I have to tell you guys, I think you guys are gonna have to take the lead on this one, because honestly, I am not up to speed.
okay. Do you want me to make a little? So
Sure.
I think where we left off here was let me bring. Am I still sharing my screen?
No, you're not.
Cheryl, can I get on there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I don't know how much anybody remembers from the last time, but basically we have the proposed we have an existing house here towards the back where this terrace and dining room portion of the new house is. We have a cesspit in this area, which we want to abandon. So a portion of the existing house is going to be demoed, and a portion, well, the entire existing cottage is going to be demoed. A portion of that is in the buffer here. The cesspit is in the buffer, which we want to abandon and reclaim this area here, which is like a little lawn area. And then we also have a portion of the new, well, we have a portion of new driveway at the end of the existing gravel drive, which we're also going to provide some mitigation for in the way of some pervious pavers. There was also some comments regarding providing some erosion control along the gravel driveway during construction, and also protection of the existing stream crossing culvert. There's a 3-sided culvert, and we are proposing to preserve that and protect that during construction. So so we have a planting plan for reclamation of the lawn and existing sewage disposal area, some mitigation for some new impervious area in front of the garage, and also the temporary erosion and sediment control during construction. And I think that was it from where we left off. Andy, you recall that site meeting, correct?
Yeah, I was pretty fine with it. You know, I mean, you're right on the edge of the buffer, but you're out of it. And I just, you know, I think everything, and Max weigh in, I think everything that, you know, we sort of asked for in terms of protections is there.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only thing maybe if we could try to include some deer fencing around the planting area.
Oh, sure.
That'd be ideal. But yeah, from a wetlands perspective, I don't see any real conflicts here that or any red flags.
Jason, you've called it where the cesspool or cesspit was that's being reclaimed. You keep saying that it's being reclaimed as lawn.
It's lawn now. It's like a little open space. It's like the only little lawn area. We're gonna plant it with layering of shrubs and of native shrubs. So it's no longer going to be lawn. I probably
Going to kind of soften that edge and make it a little more natural.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because it goes down and it even widens out a little bit. You know, it's a big lawn area. We're gonna add some vegetation there, so it's not all open.
Great. That was my question. Thank you.
Hey, Jason, when you say reclaim, does that mean dig it out and move it away, or just bury it where it is?
The actual cesspit, I believe, is like a steel drum, so it will be excavated and disposed of at the appropriate facility and backfilled with run-of-bank sand and gravel, and then whatever layers of soil need to be at the top for the plantings the surface will be treated appropriately for that. But the actual cesspit, the sewer, the cesspit itself, the sewer line, which I believe is it's like the clay tile pipe, all that will be removed. It will be completely removed, excavated, and the soil replaced.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Is this one, came from the planning board? Is this the referral?
Correct.
So
We have a public hearing scheduled for Thursday.
okay, I mean, I have to say, if everybody else is comfortable with it, I don't have any comments.
Yeah, I mean,
I think sorry, Andy, go ahead.
no, I said pretty much what we asked for was done. So I'm fine.
All right.
If the planning board their approvals, Mark, we can issue a conditional permit now. I'm sure that was the way you were leaning, but we wouldn't be able to issue the permit until the planning board made their determination of significance on the project.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know there's any rush for us to issue the permit at this point. Should we just wait till it comes back?
I don't think it would come back before us if we were comfortable with what they've laid out, unless there's major changes to the site plan that would move the building into the wetland buffer.
You know, it's funny, what that's ringing in my ears is we look at it, goes back to the planning board. They change it radically, like remove a horse farm or a horse thing in the middle, and they say, no, it doesn't have to go back to the conservation board. So
That couldn't happen.
never. That's just purely hypothetical. But whatever you guys think.
I say we wait till it's done, but Jason, is there any time sensitive items that you need done for this that holds you guys up?
Just as long, I mean, I don't know that a permit is ever actually issued before planning board approval. I mean, I don't.
Right.
I mean, to be honest with you, I can't remember how exactly it works. I mean, as long as
that's the right process, you know, that's the right process. So maybe we should just wait.
Yep. So let's leave it alone.
Yeah, I
All
mean,
right, Jason.
yeah.
You know,
Okay.
you're okay on that one.
I mean, can we get something written can we get something written so that we could go back, so that we have something for the,
Yes.
because I believe in Ron's memo, they wanted something written.
Right.
So if we
All
could,
right, Max, can you do a quick one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just gonna cite this plan set then, and then say that we're comfortable issuing a permit based on this plan set. So if that changes, then we'll have some sort of grounds to stand on.
Good.
Okay.
Jason, are you on Johnson also?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so let's keep going.
Okay.
This one is a referral also from planning board?
Correct. Yep. They are also scheduled for a public hearing on Thursday.
Okay. All right, again, I apologize. I am not familiar with this one at all. Andy or anybody else, did you guys look at this one?
I mean,
Matt?
Max and I went out there, and I think Jan, you were there too, right?
Yep, I was there.
My concern is the driveway goes further than it needs to. Jason, can you bring the plan up?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is the area that you're talking about here.
Right, so I know when I was at the site, I was suggesting your employer needs to get you a faster graphics card.
So, Cheryl, can you patch in also Scott, and if he wants to chime in on this, but I can. So basically, the driveway ends, or there's like a traveled way that kind of ends at this, where this kind of like this bulge in the proposed driveway is. So it kind of ends here. And then we are continuing it to approach the house from the northwest side.
Jason, what's the distance from the, we'll call it the northern edge of the road to the pond?
The northern edge, it's about, the wetland buffer is here.
Right.
It's probably 75 feet.
Right. So when I was out there, the issue I was having is why continue the road? Why not have an entrance in, I'll call it the front of the house, or in between the septic field? Because we're giving, we're basically doing what I believe in my mind is an unnecessary intrusion into the wetland buffer. That was my comment. So it's for everybody else. Jan and Max were out there, so they might not think the same way.
Well, I guess one of the points is, we're coming up and we're coming out completely outside of the buffer, and there's not going to be any turnouts here. I mean, it's just a lot to try to get in and then turn 90 up into the house site. I mean, it does make it a little bit more difficult with the with the proximity to the septic as well. If we could keep the area between the house and the septic, without vehicular traffic. The other issue is we have this graded at about 10%. So this area alongside the house. So it's tight. And this affords us an area for turning around. It's just tighter, that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about we have about a we have about a 1,200 foot, or I'm sorry, about a 1,400 foot driveway, and I know that it is extra, but it's only another 100 feet, to continue on. We don't have much, we don't have a lot of tree clearing here. I mean, there's a couple of dead maples here. you know, at the edge, at the very edge of the wetland buffer. You know, those they're not in great condition. This area, there is a little, this is the area of the proposed driveway through the area that you're referring to is generally cleared. We have provided some mitigation for this area. You know, we have provided a mitigation plan here. We can replant. As you said before, we can make it better, I think, than what it is now. There's a lot of dead ash in here. So, I mean, I think it is an opportunity for us to make this buffer area better, I guess is the general idea.
Jason, unfortunately, I didn't go on the site and see this, but I'm kind of flummoxed by the plan because does the driveway, the intended driveway that's looping around, is that going to go underneath the lap pool?
Correct. That is correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. And the entry is the entry. So you come up around to the side of the house, you come under, the entry the entry to the north wing of the house is generally under this area here. There's a deck here.
Mm-hmm.
And a pool that goes across to the south wing. But yeah, you drive underneath the lap pool, and then the garage area is in here. The garage is right here, and the south wing of the house is here.
Jason, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Where's the property line?
The property line is right here. This is
Yeah, okay.
right along here. And so it goes along here, down here, and then like that. So there's actually a pin out there, right here at this corner. There's a pin that's staked in the field.
All right. Yeah, I mean, this to me I mean, you know, it's one of my last little comments here. The house is obviously stunning, and you know, building a house like this, you want to take full advantage of the property and the views of the lake and everything else. But the driveway is just flying in the face of what we normally like to see. You know, so it's an essential thing. Obviously, you got to get a driveway to a house, but you know, if the house wasn't this big, you'd have more room for driveway. You know, as though the considerations weren't the limitations of the site are sort of being dodged. You know, they're not being put forefront. So if this is what really desperately what the client wants to build, then maybe this is another one of those opportunities like the pool in the buffer, where they spent a lot of time and effort coming up with a mitigation plan that made the site better than it is now in order to go through there.
I mean, the owners, they own about 50 acres contiguous of land. And this is literally this patch here,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's the only thing that it's the only thing they have, you know? So yeah, they wanted to maximize.
Wait, Jason, I don't understand. You just said that they own 50 contiguous acres, but this is the only patch they have. What is
This is
I don't know what
this is the only patch that's of land that's buildable.
What are the restrictions? Why is the rest unbuildable?
You got the ravine over on this side.
Yep.
We're not crossing that. And then this area here.
I can't really see your cursor.
You gotta cross this stream. You gotta cross this stream. You got the pond over here, and the rest of it is the rest of it's across the pond.
Right.
it's an ecologically challenging property. But
Which,
because of that, the design needs to suit the site rather than the other way around, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Well, I
just
mean-
because it's challenging doesn't mean that it has to be built on. Like, I mean, just, yeah, it's the only spot that they possibly could build, but it's a huge place and it's a huge driveway, I mean.
Yep.
So who
I-
owns the land to the south, meaning the bottom of the screen?
The land to the south is Scenic Hudson.
Okay, so the question becomes, why not? It would require a variance from the zoning board of appeals, but to have a non-conforming setback so that we could pull the road out of the buffer. And then they do pretty much same thing. We're talking, what is it, 30 feet, which I think you have, but you would just be non-conforming.
It's still not going to pull it all out, Andy. If you look at where the wetland buffer is, it's still, even if they pushed way over.
Yeah, you're probably right. I might be underestimating. Yeah.
I think that's optimistic. I really liked your solution, your very pragmatic solution. It just brings the driveway around the other side of the house to the garage.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not going to work with the separation distances to the we're going to need some more formal drainage there. We're not going to meet the separation distances to the septic system.
Yeah.
I think I've been on the site twice with Andy and Max, and it's about as challenging a site as I think you can imagine. The owners seem very environmentally responsible. They also want to enjoy the site. This strikes me, I think Mark sort of hit it on the head. If they want to do this kind of stuff, which I understand why they want to do it, it really is, I think, an opportunity for them not just to plant a few shrubs and a tree or two, but to do something more meaningful and significant in the same way that Mark referred to when we worked out the swimming pool mitigation.
Yeah, I mean, the owners are certainly willing to provide an extensive wetland mitigation plan.
Jason, let me throw this out. You mentioned that there's a stream to the left. That's what all the narrow blue lines are, right?
Correct.
And then
Yep.
another stream, a much bigger stream further to the left. Can you move the map to the left? Is that yeah, right?
Yeah, that's the actual inlet. That's the main inlet to the pond. That's a Class A, DEC Class A stream.
And
That's a little bit more significant. That this is more of an intermittent stream that runs alongside of the house site. This is the regular up in this corner here. That's the regular inlet to the pond.
And that's on their property?
Correct.
And then there's also that stream across to the right. Is that seems to go down into the gorge?
Yeah, this is the outlet to the outlet to the pond.
Okay, it's going downhill, I see. So, I mean, those are three big opportunities for, if you focusing, maybe you can make those areas better. You don't necessarily just have to plant or improve the area between the house site and the pond. You've got all these other wetlands that potentially could benefit. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, we're gonna provide mitigation all along this stretch here, and we can even this stream isn't we can even do something in this stream because it's it's eroding and it's not great. We can do something in there as well.
What do you think, Max?
We can make the whole site better. I mean, I think that's the general idea here.
Max,
I think we can do better.
Any particular thoughts on these other streams that did you see the other streams, and is it something that could warrant, if there was mitigation there, it might offset the entire driveway being in the buffer?
Yeah, I think there's a really good opportunity for improving the other portions of the property that we would regulate, or would be regulated under Chapter 93. I think in terms of what's in front of us now, I think really we want to evaluate the site design so that we can give the planning board some sort of sense on which way we're leaning, and then in terms of configuration. And then I'd love to see all these plans that Jason's showing us now fleshed out for the entire property or the entire project area. And so that we can, when we're coming up with our permits, we can, you know, really look in detailed view at what we want to impose
Right.
before development.
I mean, I think if we write a letter to the planning board, it should be clear that we are not happy with the driveway being completely in the wetlands. And the first step would be change it radically and get everything out of the buffer. But if that's not something that's tenable, then treat it like the pool and let the client come up with an extensive series of plans to show the benefit, again, with a list of the benefits. Remember what we did on the pool? They actually presented not only a drawing of what they're going to do, but the benefits of each approach, you know, so you can, yes, sir.
No, Mark, I just want to, it's the point that you are making and Jan made, you know, at some point, I think having some sort of a special work session to have this conversation about what the menu of mitigations involves and whether or not, you know, as Philipstown faces more and more development in tougher and tougher ecological spaces, you know, does mitigation include down the line heating and cooling systems? Does it include solar? Does it include things that really do reduce the carbon footprint of the building? You know, I don't know enough about, you know, I know that has not been done on the conservation board in the past, but I think, you know, we're all dancing around this topic of, you know, to make these sorts of tough decisions, what is all, you know, the mitigation benefits and how extensive is that menu to, you know, to make those trade-offs. And I think that we should have some sort of a session devoted to that.
So,
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, one concept I'd like to make sure we have a discussion about when we talk about mitigations is that it's fit for purpose, that the mitigation is really designed for that site, for that particular, you know, situation. Because I get nervous when I hear menu, then it's just a laundry list. Oh, I put a green roof on it and I can get whatever I want in the wetlands. That shouldn't be the way it is, because the damage that can be done to, you know, one small, you know, stream in an area is different than you know, another area that might have a larger stream or less of an impact for the same type of, you know, violation or not violation, or, you know, encroachment into the wetlands. So I just really want to make sure that we don't start going down a road where it's just like a bartering system of putting in a heat pump, you know, that basically doesn't do anything for the wetlands, but, you know, maybe does something for carbon footprint, but, you know, it's not kind of really the same goals, you know. That's
Bob, I definitely agree with you, Bob, and I don't want to derail this meeting because we never have time for it, but I think just creating space for that sort of a more expansive conversation, not shoehorning it, but I agree with you in terms of that.
I don't know what the right form is, but we should definitely do it, so.
Yeah,
I agree. We ought to get that on the calendar in the new year as a special meeting with no particular projects to consider.
Great.
agreed.
So the question is now, Max, you're going to need to write a letter to the planning board, and what are you thinking of saying?
I guess I'll just reiterate the point that you all made earlier, that, you know, while you're not fully comfortable with the spur of the driveway towards the house, there is the potential to look at the entire project area in regards to mitigation, to improve and make the landscape better than it was from a, you know, natural resources management standpoint. And they can consider that. I you know, unless you guys have other glaring changes that you'd like to see to the layout of the site plan. I don't know if there was anything else that stood out to the board, but that was really it. So that when the planning board evaluates how they're moving forward with this, when they come back for permits, you know, we'll at least be able to entertain that discussion.
Max, I think that the letter should very strongly state that the driveway, that's a big problem. It's not just, okay, well, it's a big problem, and it's up to the client to try to offer a lot of mitigation, change the plan slightly, but that indicating that we're flexible and that, we have all these different things we're trying to consider, to Jason's point about the alternatives, to Bob's point about it not being a menu and it being like the one that with down on the river, that there was nothing left for him to do. There was nothing left for him. There was no way. He was either eliminate the pool or, all the other things. When you look at the whole picture, it's what's there now is doing more damage to the environment. That those two houses burning oil for heat and with a lawn next to the river is doing more damage to the environment than what's the house that's going to be built is going to do. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. So what do we do? We're not voting on this. Max, you're going to write a letter and we're going to move on.
Right.
If I could just reiterate one point, and I mean, maybe I should just keep my mouth shut, but this driveway is about, 1,400 feet long, and about 1,200 feet is in the buffer, and about 1,100 feet of that, there's absolutely no way to get it out of the buffer.
Unless you build a smaller house.
No, regardless of any house that we build is going to require this driveway.
I think we recognize that, but you could minimize the amount that it's in by shortening and changing its.
It could be 100 feet shorter.
Well, the point is, if it's a smaller house, it's also a smaller septic, or it gives you more room to put the septic, which means like we did, I don't remember the name of the one where we made them push the house back and into the steep slope. It's a little harder to work on, but there are things that can be done if that's your primary goal. But that's not the goal. Clearly, the design is to maximize this gorgeous house.
Well, and it's to maximize the small amount of land that we have available relative to the amount of land that they own.
I mean, you're talking to a builder, so you could build a 2-bedroom house there that's 30 by 30 and put a small septic in and bring the driveway, and you wouldn't go anywhere near the buffer. But that's not what the client wants, so it's ridiculous to ask.
If I could just jump in here, I'm the client and I'm also the architect, and I really appreciate all the time. How are you guys? Really appreciate all the time, and this conversation is really terrific, and I really appreciate everyone who came to the site. It was not everybody. I would love for everyone to come to the site to actually see it, because it's a very special site, and we've been working on this for years, trying to figure out the best way to access the site, the best way to approach the house. And it's an existing road that's been there for many, many, many years. And one of the initial idea was let's just use that existing road as much as possible, because we don't want to disturb the site. We want to disturb the site as little as possible. One of the first ideas was just to put a new road all the way down the property line. And my conversation with Jason goes on 2.5 years about how do we move that road so we do as little disturbance to the site as possible. And by that, I mean, we use the existing road. And so the existing road just happens to be in the buffer. There's really no way we can get to the house without going through the buffer and without coming to have this kind of vigorous discussion. I think what's tripping everybody up is the site visit with that just happened, and the realization that the extra 100 feet to get to approach the house, because of the situation, because of the position of the septic system, that extra 100 feet is triggering this entire conversation. And to your comment about building a smaller house and having a smaller septic system, it's for a 3-bedroom house. It's not going to get that much. That's the most we could possibly get. So, we would do all this if we made it a 2-bedroom house. Maybe we'd get a slightly smaller septic system, but we can't build a 2-bedroom house. That's just not possible. We have too many kids and hopefully grandchildren soon. Right. So, and then the other thing is, in thinking about this just from a design point of view, if you have a 1,400 square foot or 1,400 foot driveway, you don't want to suddenly make an abrupt turn and go and dead end it into a garage. It has to be kind of a graceful approach. And that's why we extended that around and then underneath that lap pool. So you could have a real architectural approach to this house. So you don't want to go through this whole exercise and then have a kind of a lousy, silly approach to the house when you're right on the pond right there. So I just want to emphasize that we're really working really hard on this. I mean, we've been banging our heads against the wall for a very long time, talking to Max before we even bought the property, trying to come up with a really sensitive solution to this. We think this is a very sensitive solution, and we engaged Susan Janeshill to come up with the mitigation plan, which I'm not sure if you've really reviewed, but it's part of this current package. I mean, we're really trying everything we can. We're also negotiating with New York State to sell a lot of this 50 acres back to New York State because we want to create as much parkland as possible. And so we're trying to do the right thing. I mean, my background is, you know, I've created 5 parks on Long Island. That was something that I did years ago in my previous kind of life. So we're very conservation sensitive, and we're not trying to pull anything over on anyone, any wool over on anyone's eyes. We're really trying to do the best job we possibly can, but at the same time, respond to the site from a kind of a sensitive and architectural way. We want to make a beautiful site. We've also done a lot of studying on how the sun moves to the site. The location of every single room is based on how the sun will hit it throughout the day. And also the wind studies and how to protect the wind, which comes basically from behind the house. And so we didn't just make these, you know, it's not like a big selfish house that we're trying to build. We're trying to really make it sensitive to the environment and sensitive specifically to that environment. Because if you go to this site, you'll see it's a very special place and there's very little room to build. And then you have all these different environmental features of the site, from the hills to the pond to the gorge, that just really impact, you know, every little decision that we've made. So I just want to just mention that that is the process that we're going through. We're not trying to do this randomly. Every move is made with intention.
Understood. Well said. All right. I'll leave it to you, Max.
Okay, so is everyone comfortable with that messaging to the planning board? And then, you know, essentially we'll be able to delve deeper into mitigation for the project if this goes through the planning board and they make their decisions to grant special permits.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in. All right, let's.
Thank you.
So what do we have? Mountain Brook Drive. That's,
We just did that.
That's this.
yeah, what am I doing?
We got,
Hopefully I
I
put my
believe
glasses.
Rockwald is next.
Yes. Yep, again, this is just new business, so we typically, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a quick synopsis of the whatever wetlands issues there are that are coming before us that would be considered, and then the guys will go out, or ladies and guys will go out and do a site visit.
Sure. I think River Architects is going to take the lead on this one.
Yes.
Hi, Vinny.
Hi, how are you guys? I'm Vinny Sickles. I'm from River Architects, and I'm representing the Pierces. So this is an existing lot that was approved in 76 as a ODA subdivision. And do you want me to share my screen to talk through the
Sure.
project? Okay, sure. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So basically, the site is here in red. This is the intersection of 9 and 301 here. And this is where Rockwald Road kind of comes in off of a 301. The existing site was lot 3. Was created in a subdivision 76. And basically, we were basically trying to reuse an existing kind of traveled way that travels through the site down off of Rockwald Road. There's some existing culvert pipes that were put in as a part of that access way. And I guess part of the issue that we're trying to address with our approach to the site is kind of basically working around the existing steep slopes and the stormwater that we were receiving from the Rockwald Road. We have at the top of the site here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 culvert pipes that's directing water across our site. And jump back up to our site plan here. Sorry, 1 second. And basically trying to find the least invasive approach to the lot that the building site that we're proposing. So we're trying to basically reuse the existing kind of traveled access way to not avoid disturbing any of the steep slopes. We had kind of here crosshatched here. And then Max was out there and did flagged the wetlands. And this drawing is based on a draft of his markups. Jason's team is currently in the process of surveying that and finalizing that for us. So basically it's the kind of the wetlands that are being kind of formed at the top of the driveway as kind of the water that's coming out of this existing culvert pipe and kind of sheet flowing across the top of the driveway here. And then there's an existing culvert that crosses the driveway kind of at this turn, which is capturing some more of this runoff down here. And then as we kind of come down the site, this is all kind of downhill from Rockwall Road. So you kind of come down the hill, following the access way, and then we're basically trying to put the house on this kind of rise here in the kind of the middle of the site. It's basically the flattest portion of the property, and out of the steep slopes, that kind of takes up most of the northern side of the lot, northwest side of the lot. And then the current issue we're looking at trying to address is basically crossing the kind of wetlands area that Max had flagged at the top of the driveway, and then basically restoring and replacing this culvert that was put in when this access way was built, which is basically kind of cutting off the kind of natural flow of the water down this kind of hill here. And this culvert basically has become silted over and is now blocked. And basically this kind of flagged area here is due to the water being redirected around this culvert and this kind of raised area for the driveway, and is kind of washing out and eroding into this flat area to the north. So our proposed plan is to basically restore the kind of access way into the new driveway, redirect the culvert at the top of the access way around the driveway access to a Rockwall Avenue, the protective outflow, and probably a swale of some kind to direct the water around the driveway. And then same thing at the bottom, we'd be basically kind of creating a more kind of protected inflow and outflow of a replaced culvert pipe, and basically allowing that water to kind of continue down the hill into the existing wetlands area. And then one of the ideas was also kind of redirecting this water back into the kind of flagged wetlands area. It would allow this existing portion of the site to kind of dry back out as the water won't be washing out in this area anymore. And that would allow us to basically locate our septic field outside of the steep slope and allow us to access the kind of house on this rise in the middle of the site to allow us to basically direct any of the leader drains and footing drains, any kind of water that coming off this house basically would be directed on the opposite side of this kind of rise in the middle of the site. And those would be basically directed to a protective outflows away from the steep slopes on the back side of the house. And then this is currently, we're looking at a footprint for the house is just under 2,600 square feet. And then we're also looking at just under 1,000 square foot for a 2-car garage for this project. And we are looking to basically design, this house is being pursuing passive house certification for the residence, which would be a 3-bedroom. And that's, I guess, and then due to the kind of setting of the house, we're also looking to utilize the roof of the garage to house our solar voltaic array. So basically any clearing that's done for the house and the garage would basically allow the garage roof to maximize its southern exposure across the kind of house cleared part of the site, and maximize any kind of PV solar generation that we can generate off of the roof of the garage here.
All right. Max, can I ask you, as the driveway comes in and goes through that first sort of oval wetland and then cuts through the top edge of that next one down, how significant are those wetlands? How functional are they?
They're the majority of what's closest to Rockwall Road are intermittent water courses. Everything that's closer to the house site on the southwest portion of the property is what we'd consider a more wetland in proper terms. A lot of it, like Vinny was saying, is a factor of drainage off of the hillside there from stormwater, and probably upwellings of groundwater as well. So I don't know if that answers your question in completeness enough, but essentially what you're seeing in front of you is a draft of what I went out and flagged that's still yet to be located via a surveyor or Jason's team to kind of refine those boundaries a little bit more.
Yep. I mean, my general thinking is, you know, if they are highly functional wetlands, we look at it one way. If they're just, there's not a huge amount of benefit, or, you know what I'm trying to, not using the right words, but if they are not extremely important wetlands and the wetlands down below are more important and the ones below are being completely avoided, if you trade off the incursion into those two smaller wetlands with mitigation, more mitigation to the more important one down below, and I guess the new culverts and so on is already going in that direction. But if you continue down that path more, it continues. That's our normal line of thinking, right? I mean, we hate to cross any, but you tell me, Max.
Well, I mean, I would defer to the board too, but I think that one of the main components of this is ensuring that the hydrology of the site is functioning correctly to feed into that larger wetland area to the southeast of the house, because that does connect into a larger water course that runs towards Route 9.
It's down here on the bottom here.
Yeah.
I think we need to.
That being,
yep.
Yeah, I think site visit's imperative. I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is the proposed septic area is currently where the termination of a lot of these intermittent water courses are. And, you know, I think looking at the site from a perspective of whether or not we move some things around on the site plan to accommodate removing the septic from that area, if these changes to the intermittent water courses can't be made, I think we just need to evaluate that in the future too when we look at this again or get out there.
Yep. All right, good. So
can you just share what the grade is on the driveway? I'm just looking at that long kind of ski slope of a driveway.
It's going to be the max. It's going to be 14%.
Okay.
It's going to be the maximum.
That's okay.
Yeah.
all right, well, thank you, Vinny, for giving us the overview. As usual, the board will schedule with Max, and Max will reach out to you and schedule site visits before the next meeting.
Yeah, we will have, I believe we finished the field work. So the field work for locating those flags I believe was complete today. I got to double check, but we should have, so when you have that site meeting, we should have a definitive map. It was the goal, that you have an actual map with the actual things on there.
Thank you. All right. Can we move on to one other order of business then for the evening? Thank you, Vinny, for coming in.
Thank you, everybody.
As you guys know, I'm going to say goodbye tonight. So I was hoping you guys could all talk about potential new members. I know there's been some discussion of, well, why don't you guys lead the way with this one? Because I know each person has someone in mind, I think, or there are a few people being considered.
Someone mentioned that Grace Kennedy had been interested in possibly joining, and Grace is a gardener. She's lived here for, I don't know how long, 25, 30 years, lives in Garrison, has a good business as a local gardener. She's very eco-conscious. And I didn't know that she was interested. I know her personally, and I know her from working with her over the years. I mean, she's obviously come before this board many times for clients. And that may be an issue, right? That's one of that may be a con to her nomination to the board. But she is a smart, thoughtful, experienced person. She understands the town. She understands the goals of the conservation board. So I would endorse her nomination. But I do understand that some people have think that the fact that she you know, she may have to recuse herself regularly, might be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, she actually emailed me and expressed interest. And then, I mean, I think she'd be great. You know, I agree there is might be some concern if she has to recuse herself very often, but better to have her and have to recuse herself every once in a while than not have her, my opinion.
I have to recuse myself regularly. I'm between the jobs that I've held over the years, right? There have been projects that I haven't been able to, or I've at least had to disclose that, you know, even if it's not a conflict, that there might be an appearance of a conflict. So, I mean, we've navigated that before.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Jan.
The other potential candidate, I think he's going to actually draft something this week, is Scott Silver, the director of the Marsh. And like Grace, Scott has deep roots in Philipstown, has lived here a long time, and obviously has a deep background in wildlife and wildlife ecology, habitat and management. So I think we've got two very interesting candidates with deep ties to Philipstown and deep quality backgrounds and expertise for the town to consider.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I agree with Jan. I think they're both good candidates.
So I don't know what the process is, but all I can say is it has been a pleasure to have worked with all you guys for all these years. I have learned, it's been like a PhD education. So I hope I've contributed in some ways, and I consider you all to be my friends, and whatever I can do going forward, you know, I mean, if you have a question that involves building or something and you'd like us another opinion, you always know how to get me. So thank you.
Mark, thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Great job.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna miss it. I really am.
Yeah, I'd just say, you know, I'm one of the newer members of this board, Mark, relative to the people who've been here a long time, like MJ, Andy, you, Bob. But I have always thought you provided great leadership and guidance as the chair. You had a vast pool of knowledge about construction, design, all of the technical issues that I know very little about. And I took great comfort from that expertise as well as that of the other board members. But I think you also had a great temperament for the job. You know, on the one hand, we have a really important environmental duty and responsibility from the town. On the other hand, these are real people's lives who are coming before us. A lot of times they've spent a lot of money. They haven't always known what they were getting into. And while we can't operate as a sympathy board, I think I've just been impressed that you always tried to do, to the extent possible, the right thing for the applicant while protecting the interests of Philipstown and the environment. And that's a tough line to walk sometimes. So we're going to miss you a lot.
Thank you, Jen. All right. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Farewell.
Good night.